So, wait, hey, Latin 1 students, welcome back. Hope you guys had a great weekend and enjoyed the Roman baths. I gave you yesterday the assignment to look at. The baths are very interesting. I saw them actually last summer, and that's what made me think of doing something with the baths. They're just one of the best sets of Roman baths in the world. Fascinating to look at. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll try to throw in some culture lessons along the way whenever I'm able to. But I want to start chapter 15 with you guys today, and we're going to do the vocab today. And then tomorrow I will fill in with the notes. So you can be on the lookout for that. Today is all about the vocabulary. So you see the vocabulary on the screen here. This is a Quizlet set, and I've actually already shared this set with you in the Quizlet class. So as long as you're in that Quizlet class I had you join last week, you already have access to these sets. You can go ahead and begin studying them and practicing those today. So if you learn the vocab before the chapter starts, you're in a much better position to understand it. Okay. We had our quiz last Friday, so hope you guys did well. I know it's the first time you've kind of been alone studying for a quiz and everything. Hopefully it worked okay. Take it on your computer, and we'll work our way through this chapter, and then I'll let you know when the quiz is coming up. But you've had experience with it now, and you know how to deal with it. This Friday, of course, we have Good Friday, so we will not have classes on Friday. I won't post any new assignments or anything. You'll have that day to kind of spend more time with your family and stuff, and then we'll have a short week this week. So if you go over the vocabulary real quick and put this in your vocabulary tab of your notebook, I'm going to go through the derivatives for these words and talk about the words, and you can just kind of learn them and understand them as you go along. And on your own, you can study them on Quizlet. Again, you should have the set on your Quizlet if you're part of my class on Quizlet. Okay, so this chapter is about third declension neuter words. Last chapter we learned the third declension masculine and feminine words. The neuter words decline a little bit differently. So today we'll see them in the vocab, and tomorrow we'll see them. I'll give you the notes with how to decline them and how to translate them and everything. So the first word you'll notice on your screen is Caesar, Caesaris, masculine, meaning Caesar. Of course, even names can decline in ancient Rome, so this is a name. Now, we've learned the three names before in class. I mean, the three names of a Roman man. That would be the praenomen was your first name. That was like your friends and family would call you that. Your nomen was your middle name. And then your cognomen was that third name. Three names is kind of standard. There could be more for certain types of people, but three names was the standard. So praenomen, and then nomen, and then cognomen. So for Caesar, Caesar, his name was Gaius Julius Caesar, so that was his cognomen. That was his last name. Julius was his nomen, his family name. Caesar would have identified kind of the specific branch of his family, whereas Julius, the Julian family, was his bigger family, and then Gaius was Julius Caesar's praenomen that his friends and family would call him. So notice how this name's masculine, so it's not a neuter word. It would decline exactly like the words we learned last chapter. You want to go back and make sure you know your endings. Blank is ema, ace ibis, ace ibis. That's exactly how Caesar's name would decline, except in Latin we call it Caesar. Now, any derivatives coming from Caesar's name? Well, of course, there's some rulers that they kind of styled themselves after Caesar. Caesar's name almost became synonymous with a strong leader. And so if you look around the world in world history, you'll see words like Kaiser, which is a leader of Germany, not anymore, but it used to be. Kaiser is like the German form of Caesar, right? You also had in Russia the Tsar. Tsar is kind of a Russian form of the word Caesar. So very interesting how his name just went into other languages to mean leader. And I'm sure you love his the salad named after Caesar. The next word is caput capitis, which is neuter, and it means head. Tomorrow I will tell you how to decline this word in the notes and everything, but this is the word just like for the head on your body is usually what it means. And some derivatives of this would be like capital, like the capital of the state, or even if you talk about capital punishment, if you hear about that, it means if someone does a crime and they get executed for it. Capital means capital off of their head. So that's a good derivative that comes from this. Decapitate would be another derivative here. De, of course, means away. We know that in Latin. So decapitate means someone's head is removed away from their body. The next one is carmen, carmenis, neuter, meaning song or poem. You see the one right here. The reason this one can mean song or poem is because poetry, even more than nowadays, poetry was a very musical thing in the ancient world. It was very, very commonly associated, like went along with music when it was being recited, and it was like music and poetry were together. So it kind of makes sense that song and poem would be the same word. Not a lot of derivatives from Carmen, but we do have a very pretty female name, Carmen. Some women are called Carmen. So if you know anyone with that name, their name means, song, which is interesting. So that's one derivative there. The next one is corpus corporis, neuter meaning body. Now, one thing I want to point out with this one is look at that corpus, that US right there. Now, pay close attention because we know that second declension words can end in US, right? Like amicus or magnus, or a lot of words we learn were second declension. So if you just look at that US, you might get confused and think, oh, this word's second declension. You got to learn the genitive. How do we know this word's third declension? Because its genitive ends in IS. Okay, so very, very crucial there to look at the genitive to know the declension. It's not corpus corpi, which is what you might assume if you think second declension. It's corpus corporis. So that's very, very crucial. You get the genitive, you get the vocabulary. So corpus corporis neuter means your body, and derivatives from this would be like corporal, like in a military sense. Corporeal refers to body, like our corporeal existence means relating to our body. Kind of a grisly derivative would be like a corpse could come from this, or even corps, like a group of people, like the Marine Corps or something like that comes from body as well. So a lot of derivatives from that one. Diligentia, diligentiae, feminine, meaning diligence or care. Now that one should look very different to you, right? Why does it look different? Because of this, the genitive is diligentiae. What does that mean about it? It means it's first declension. So not every word in this chapter is third declension. This one's first declension. What are some good derivatives from this word? Words that come from it, in English words that come from this would be like diligence. That's a good word. If you do something with great diligence, it means you do it with care. Also, if you're a careful person, if you work on things very carefully, we call you diligent. So that would be the word coming from that as well. The next word is flumen. Fluminous, neuter, meaning river or stream. So this is a common word, like a lot of rivers in Italy. We know the Tiber runs through Rome. We learned that before. And so notice the genitive, though, flumen. Same thing with Carmen. Notice how the genitive changes from an E to an I, fluminous. So just watch out for little spelling changes like that, because, of course, the base will come from this form right here. Okay. So what about a derivative here from flumen, fluminous? Anything having to do with a river? Not a ton of derivatives, but we do have you ever gone to an amusement park? You went on one of those fun rides. It's like a log going down a little river or something, and it eventually goes down fast. Those are called a flume ride sometimes. A flume ride is like you're on a little make-believe river going around a log ride. So that's kind of a cool one. Okay, the next word. This one, students struggle with the genitive on this one, so just make sure to be careful. Iter, iteris, neuter. March or journey is what this means. Okay, depends on the context. If it's in a military context, it'll probably mean march. If it's more in a personal or travel context, it'll mean journey. Watch out for the genitive, because again, the base is not from iter, the base from itineris. You cut off that is, and here is the base right here. I wonder if let me highlight these things. Let me see. Yeah, it does. So the base will be right there. You cut off the is, and that gives you the base. Now this means a journey or a march. So what are some good derivatives here? Well, you might have, like you're going on a trip, you and your family, you have your itinerary, right? That tells you kind of where you're going on your journey. So that's a good derivative. Also, the word itinerant. You may not have heard that word before, but itinerant refers to a job that requires travel a lot, like you're on the move a lot. So you don't hear it as much anymore, but used to, they would talk about like someone was an itinerant salesman, and it meant they went from city to city, they would sell stuff door to door, and then they would move on to the next city. So itinerant means your job is not static, you move from place to place. The next word here is nomen nominus, neuter, meaning name. You kind of see some patterns, don't you? The genitives here, they're a little bit tricky, some of them, but there's patterns. They're not all just completely random. Like look at the pattern between nomen nominus, flumen fluminus, carmen carminus. Very similar pattern with how the genitives behave. So make note of those patterns and make the words easier to learn. Now this word just means name. I told you your nomen was your family name. It went right in the middle, like Gaius Julius. That was his middle name, his family name, his nomen. And then praenomen was first name. Cognomen was your third name. Now what are some English words coming from this? Well, you might have a word like nominate. If you nominate someone, means you're putting their name forward, right? Hey, I nominate you to be in this position or something. And even one of our cases, of course, the nominative case would come from this as well. Another word that comes from this would be, we've actually used the term before, it's like a naming system for certain things. So if you say, these are the words we use to describe this thing, that's called nomenclature, right? And we talked about the nomenclature involving verbs or nouns, but you can talk about science nomenclature or math nomenclature or music nomenclature, words having to do with that particular topic or subject. So a lot of derivatives there. Tempus temporis is the next one. It's neuter. A lot of these are neuter, not all of them. And it means time. So tempus means time. Same warning here. Tempus, you might think it's second declension if you're not looking sharply at your vocab, but it's actually third declension neuter. So get that genitive down very, very carefully. Tempus temporis, neuter meaning time. So some derivatives from this having to do with time would be like maybe tempo. In music, you have a tempo, tells you the timing. Temporary might be another derivative. Extemporaneous means something happens kind of in a short time on the fly without planning it out a lot also. So several derivatives there from tempo. For all these words, I'm doing a few derivatives I've thought of. I'm sure there might be some others you guys think of, words you've heard before, and that's great too. The next word is vulnus vulneris, neuter meaning wound. Now don't confuse this with the verb we learned, which was vulnero, right, which means to wound. This is vulnus vulneris, meaning like a wound on someone. So this we might see this like in a military context, having to talk about soldiers or maybe gladiators getting wounded or something. So a wound. A derivative here from vulnus vulneris would be like vulnerable. If you can be wounded, you are vulnerable. Or invulnerable, excuse me, would be the opposite of that. A couple derivatives from vulnus vulneris. Again, with the U.S., not a second declension word, even though it is in U.S., it is a third declension word. Okay. A few more words. That's all the nouns. There's just a couple more words. These shouldn't be too hard. Germanus, Germana, Germanum, meaning German. Now, what does it mean about it that there's three, genders here? Masculine, feminine, neuter. You should recognize that as being an adjective. That's what adjectives look like because they can be any gender. Now, what endings do you use when you decline the adjective? It's going to be the gender of the word that it modifies, right? So if Germans is modifying soldier, like from last chapter, that's a masculine word, so it's going to have a masculine ending, but it can be modifying other stuff as well. Now, have we already learned a word similar to this? We have. We learned the word Germania, but that was the word for Germany. That was a noun. This is the adjective meaning German. So it's just adjective versus a noun. This word can also be used in a substantive context, meaning the Germans. Just like in English, when we say the Germans, we mean the German people. It's kind of implied, it's inferred. We don't necessarily need to say the word people. Same thing in Latin. If you were to say Germani, it means the Germans. You don't necessarily have to say Germani populi or something with Germans. You can just say Germani. Okay. The derivatives here probably pretty clear to you. German would come from this, Germany. The interesting thing is we call this country based off of their Roman name, whereas Germany, this is not exactly what they call their country, right? Those of you with a little bit of German experience might know that in German, the country of Germany is called Deutschland. So we use the Roman name, even though the Germans themselves don't. Interesting there. Another adjective representing a people would be Graecus, Graeca, Graecum, meaning Greek. Okay, probably you can see that there. So some derivatives here would be like Greek would be a derivative. I know it's a simple one. Maybe Greco. Have you ever heard about Greco-Roman wrestling, like in the Olympics? It's one of the types of amateur wrestling that you'll see sometimes. So a couple words there, and obviously the word Greece. It's very similar with Germany. Greece, if you're in Greece, they would not call their country that. We use the Roman name for their country, but in Greece, the Greek word for Greece is Hellas, right? So we get the word Greece coming from this, but that's not necessarily what they call their country. And Hispanus, Hispana, Hispanum would be Spanish. So it's a derivative meaning Spanish, someone from Spain. Nowadays, Spanish kind of means it could be from Spain. It could have to do with being from a Spanish-speaking area. We also have derivatives like the word Hispanic, of course, which I think means kind of you're coming from kind of an area that has Spanish heritage or maybe Spanish speaking. There's also an island, Hispaniola, which is the island that I think Haiti and the Dominican Republic sit on. They share that island and it's called Hispaniola. That might be another derivative there. The next word is Romanus, Romana, Romanum. This is probably the one we'll use the most just because we're talking about Latin. This means Roman. So Romanus, a derivative here, pretty clear. Rome, Roman would come from this. And I give you a little note here that this word would typically be used to mean something is Roman. Rather than calling him a man of Rome, someone would be called a Roman man, would be more common. So that's what the little note here means. So if you wanted to call out to the Romans, you would say Romani. That would be the vocative plural of that word. You don't necessarily need to say populi. Again, substantives are very common with these words. I wanted to remind you that there was a phrase of the day last semester we learned with Romanus in it, and that was senatus populusque Romanus, right? Which means the Senate and the Roman people. We've learned most of these words now. We've learned populus, we've learned que, now we've learned Romanus. Only word we haven't learned is senatus, but we'll learn that word later. It's a fourth declension word. It's why we haven't learned it quite yet. But senatus populusque Romanus was the motto of Rome. It was abbreviated SPQR, and even nowadays, if you go to Rome someday, you'll see SPQR all over the place. It's still the motto of Rome. You see it on signs and street and manhole covers, like in the street, and trash cans and monuments, and you see it all over the place because it is still the embodiment of Rome, the Senate, and the Roman people. So this covers our vocab. It's not a huge vocab chapter, but there's certainly some crucial words in it. You know, the third declension neuter words are brand new. We don't quite know how to deal with those yet, but tomorrow I'm going to come back and give you your lesson on the notes for this chapter. Okay. So for today, what I'd like you guys to do, now that you know the vocab, is to start going over the Quizlet, maybe practicing the vocab a little bit. Just have this kind of be a vocab day to get your new words down, and then tomorrow you'll be able to start fresh with the notes for chapter 15, and then we'll work our way through the practice through the chapter and another quiz maybe next week. Hopefully we'll be ready for a quiz after Easter weekend and Good Friday and everything. Okay, hope you guys are doing very well. If you ever need anything at all from me, if you need some help with this vocab or with the chapter, I love talking to you guys and seeing you. Make sure to pop into my office hours, which are every day at 10 in the morning from 10 to 11, and you can see directions for reaching me on those right at the top of our on-campus page. So just press that and you'll see exactly where to go to meet me on Zoom for the office hours, or you can shoot me a quick message or anything like that, a message or an email, and I'll get back to you also. Okay, hope you guys have an excellent day, and I'll see you tomorrow for our chapter 15 notes.